What's going on, everyone? Jason here again, and in this video I'll be showing you how to build another React app. So for this one we'll be using React hooks to build this out. So the hooks we'll be using will be the useContext hook and also the useReducer hook. So we'll be using those hooks to manage our state, and this is the project we'll be building. It's called React Blog. So basically you have here a landing page with a few set of blog posts with some data, so the title and the author and the date. And if you click on here on one of these posts, it'll take you to that specific post. And right now we just have some lorem ipsum, so there's no actual post, but we have the image here related to that post as well. And so these posts are actually going to be coming from a fake API. So we'll be using JSON server to feed us some API data, and we'll also be using the React router library to manage the different routes. So if you look here, we are on the home page, and if we click on one of these posts, it'll change the route here based off the ID of the post. So that's what we'll be building. So let's get started. Okay, so I have a create React app project set up here. And so I basically have the default data for the create React app, or the default markup. So then the first thing we'll need to do is install some libraries. Okay, so the libraries we'll be installing will be, let's do an npm I, and we'll be installing concurrently. So we'll be using this to concurrently run our server and also the React front end together. And so we'll do concurrently, and the second package we'll install will be JSON server, which is the library that we'll be using to basically give us a fake API to give us some blog post data. And also, let's see, so we'll also need React router DOM. And let's see, I believe that would be it. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so once those packages are installed, we will create a few scripts in our package.json. So then the first one we'll create will be JSON server, and then this will be equal to JSON server -- watch db.json -- port and 5000. So this will be the basically where our server will be on port localhost port 5000. And this db.json will be the JSON file that will be created when we run this command that will have our fake data that we'll need, or our blog post data. And then the second script we'll create will be called dev. And this will be the command that will run to start up our React app. So from here we'll do concurrently. And we'll do a \npm. Do some quotes here, npm start \, and then we'll do another \, do npm run JSON server, and then we'll do that. All right, so this will allow us to basically run both of these servers concurrently, which is what that library will help us do. And let's do that. Okay, and then down here, let's see, we'll add another property. This will be the proxy, and set that equal to http / local host 5000. And this way, whenever we make any requests in our React app to, let's say, /post, this way we don't have to put the localhost 5000 URL. It'll just proxy it to that to this URL here. And so that should be good. And let's go ahead and So let's go ahead and run this. So we'll do an npm run dev. And as you can see, it had created a new db.json file for us. And there's our React app. And if we go back into our application, we'll see this db.json that was created with a post property with an array of objects with some data. So if we go back to localhost port 3000, let's change this to 5000, and then we'll do a /posts. And as you can see, we are getting this data. So that is working correctly. Okay, so let's go ahead and start building out the React app. And so if we go back into, let's go into app.css and remove all of this, since we'll be creating our own CSS. We can leave this CSS in here for the index. And let's see. All right, so let's go into app. Let's go ahead and remove this in here. We won't be needing that. And all right. So then the first thing we'll do, let's go ahead and create our navbar. So if we go into, in source, we'll create a new folder. We'll call it components. And this folder will hold our components, our React components. So then in here, we'll call this navbar.js. And then let's create the components. So let's see. So yep. Export default. All right. So then in navbar, let's see. So in here, we'll create a div with a class name of nav. And in here, we'll do another div.class name. Whoops, not .class name, but we'll call this .container. And then here, we'll do an h2. And we'll do React blog. All right. So let's save that. Let's go into app.css, import navbar from components, navbar. And then here we can just use our component, so that'll be navbar. Okay. So let's go back to our app. As you can see, we have the React blog title there. And so then let's go into app.css and style up the nav a little bit. Okay, so in here then, we're going to add some global styles here first. So let's do an asterisk, and we'll do a margin of 0, padding of 0, and do box sizing border box. And for the body, let's give this line height style of 1.5. And let's see. So then for the .container class, we will give this a style of max width 1200 pixels. And then we'll do a padding of 0 and 16 pixels. So top and bottom will be 0 pixels, left and right will be 16. And then we'll do a margin of auto. Okay. So now for the actual nav div, let's give this a padding of 10 pixels and 0. So top, bottom 10, left, right 0. Let's go ahead and save that. Okay, so now we have some padding here and also some padding on the top and bottom. If we want, we can give this a background color just so we can see it, of cyan. Okay, that's looking good. All right, and the next thing we'll go ahead and do, let's see, so we have the navbar. Let's also create that hero image that we had in here. So for that, we'll create another component. I'll call it hero.js. Okay. So then for hero.js, let's go into navbar. Let's just copy that since it'll be a similar setup. Call this hero. And then in here, we'll change the class name. Instead of nav, we'll change that to hero, and then we'll do a div, and we'll give that title React blog. And let's go into app.css. And for, whoops. So then for the app.css, for the hero, we'll do, let's see. So hero, we'll give this this will have some styling to style the image that we're going to give this. Okay, so I copied these styles for this hero image to save us a little bit of time. But basically, I have this background image property, giving it some linear gradients and also passing the URL for that image. And this image is coming from the Unsplash website. So if you go to Unsplash, you'll get a ton of free images that you could use from there. And so I'm using this one. And so yeah, so we set the image there. We gave this hero image a height of 550 pixels. And we also positioned it with these background positioning properties, background position, background repeat, and size. And also gave it a position of relative. We also gave this div a display of flex so we can properly display the title that we had. So let's go ahead and save this and see what we get. Oh, I still have to import it. So let's go ahead and import it real quick. Let's see, and we gotta go in here. All right, so we have the hero image here with the title. So we basically displayed flex it, justified content centered the div, and then we aligned the items to be centered. So which is why we have this title here in the center. Gave it a color of white and a font size of 52 pixels. Okay, so that's looking good. Let's see. So now that we have that, the next thing we should build out would be the let's see. So let's build out the posts list section, which is the section that has the blog posts. So then before I want to build the UI for that, I'm actually going to build out the state and the functions to fetch that data. And so this is where we will go into how to use the useContext hook and useReducer hook. And so if we go back to our application, in here I want to create in my source folder another folder, we'll call it context. And in here, in our context folder, we will create, let's see, we'll create a couple files. We'll create blog context.js. And then we'll do blog provider.js. And then blog reducer. All right. So in our blog context file, we'll import a React function, create context from React. And then we'll create this variable blog context equal to create context. And then we'll export that. All right, so we have our context here set up. And now in our blog provider, we'll go ahead and import React, import useReducer, from React. And we're going to import blog context from blog context and import blog reducer from our blog reducer file. Okay. And so we'll create a variable called blog provider. So this will be a component that will basically wrap around our whole app. And this component will actually provide all of our children components, the state, and also functions that we'll need to update the state. And so set this equal to props. And so what this we'll do then is it'll return so it'll be blog context, which remember blog context is what we have here, and blog context.provider, and the blog context.provider component, we'll pass in a prop called value, and inside value we will basically pass all the properties that we want our children components to have access to. And currently we haven't built that out yet, so we'll be doing that here shortly. But let's do that. And then in here, it'll just be props.children. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and start building out the state and the methods to update the state. And so let's see. So up here, we'll do a const initial state. Set that equal to an object, and we'll have 3 properties. It'll be blog posts. That'll be an array of our blog posts, and also the current blog post. That'll be equal to null. Current blog post will basically be whenever we actually go to a specific blog post page, this blog post or this current blog post property will be set equal to that blog post object. And then we'll have a loading set to true. And this loading will basically just indicate to us when we're fetching the blog post data from the API. Okay. So then let's see. So then, so the next variable we'll create, or the next thing we'll do, is set up our useReducer hook. So we'll do useReducer, and useReducer, you'll pass in 2 arguments. First one will be a reducer function, and that will be our blog reducer function that we still need to create. And the second one will be the initial state. And from here, do some destructuring, and from there we'll get back the state and a dispatch function. Okay, there we go. So yeah, so basically we're getting back the state, and state is, well, the state of our application. And dispatch is a function that we could use to basically dispatch different actions. And so our blog reducer will be listening to whatever we dispatch here. And based off whatever we dispatch, our blog reducer will then update the state in our app based off what the user had dispatched in this dispatch function. But yeah, so the first thing then, or the next thing we'll do will be to create our functions or our action creators. So the first one we'll do is create a function called getPost. And so getPost will be a function that will get the blog post data from the API, and we'll make this a async function. Okay, so we'll do a try catch in here. All right, so in here then is where we'll do dispatch the actions to fetch the blog post. So then I'll do dispatch, and then we'll do a type, and the type will be sending requests. And then we'll do a const res equal to await, and then we'll make use of the fetch method to fetch some data. And we'll do /posts or /posts, and then we'll do const res. Oh, actually, will be const data. So this will be the actual data we get back. So this will be await res.json. And then after that, once we get the data back, we'll dispatch another action. We'll call this one request finished. And the last dispatch will be of type set posts. Okay, and for this action that we send, we will be passing a payload of the data. And data is what we defined in here. So this will be the blog post data. Okay, and let's just console.log our error here. So we'll just do console.log error. Okay, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and set up our blog reducer function. So let's go into blog reducer. And in here, we'll go ahead and import, or actually, nope, we don't need to import anything. We'll just need to export default. And this function will take state and action parameters. All right, and we'll create a switch statement. And with this switch statement, we'll switch it based off the action type. All right, and then we'll set up the cases. So for case of, let's see, for case of set posts, we will return, okay, so for this, we'll return a, we're going to return a new state object. And so for this, we'll take our current state, spread that out, and then we'll update the blog post property with the action.payload, and that'll be basically the new array of objects that we get back from the API. All right, so that's looking good. And so yeah, so if we go back in here, so whenever we call this dispatch, it's going to be of type set posts and passing that payload, and our blog reducer will be listening for the action type of set posts, and when it listens for that and when it receives that, that's when we'll update our state with those new blog posts. Okay, and then let's set up the other cases, which was, let's see, sending request, and we'll return our new state object, spreading out the state and updating the loading property to true. All right. And for the last one, that will be request finished. And then we'll return spreading out the state, so it'll be a new object, and loading will be set to false. All right, it's looking good. All right, so then now in our blog provider, we can set or pass down the values that we need to pass down. And so in here, I'll actually pass down an object, and inside that object, we'll give it a blog post property that'll be equal to state.blogpost, and the current blog post will be equal to state.current blog post. Loading will be equal to state.loading, and get posts will be equal to the get post function. All right. And let's also export our function here. So export default blog provider. All right. It's looking good. And all right, so then let's see. So now we can go back to our app.js. So let's see. So in app.js, we can import our context. So we'll do an import of blog provider from context and blog provider. Okay. And then in here we can do blog provider. And then we can just wrap all of that in here. Okay. And let's see. So then, so in order to test this out, let's see, what can we do? I guess we can just start by creating the blog post component, which will actually be fetching the data to see if this works. So let's go ahead and create another component. This one will be called postlist.js. And inside postlist, we'll need to import a few things. We'll import React, import useContext, context, and use effect, okay, from React. All right, and since this component will be using the state from our context, we'll need to also import blog context from context and the blog context. So we'll do a post list, and so post list equal to, actually let's do this. All right, so export default post list. All right, so then post list, we'll create some variables here. So we'll do const blog context equal to use context, and this is where we are using the use context hook, and here we'll pass in the actual context that we'll be using. So it'll be blog context, and then we'll do, let's see, so we'll create another variable, and we'll be using some destructuring, and we'll be destructuring from the blog context variable that we just created. And so in here is where we can destructure out the properties that we want from blog context, and we'll be using get posts, blog posts, and loading. And remember, we're grabbing this from the value object that we passed in there. All right, so then we'll also be using the use effect hook. Pass in two arguments. First one is a callback, and the second is a dependency array. And so basically we want to, whenever the component mounts, this effect will run, and we want to, once the component mounts, the effect will run, and inside this effect is where we will set up the fetching of the blog post. And so in here we can do get posts and just run that. And since we have an empty dependency array in here, all that means is this effect is only going to run one time after the component mounts. So it's not going to run again once the component updates or anything like that. It's only when the component initially mounts. Okay, so we have that. And in here, let's go ahead and do a console.log of, let's see, blog posts. Because blog posts will be populated, will be an array of objects that we'll get back. So then in here, we can just we'll just write post list for now. And let's go back to our app.js. And we'll import the post list component, save that. And let's go back to our app. So here is our post list component. Currently there's nothing there, but if we go to our console.log, make this nice and big so you can see it. And we have an array here, which currently just has one item, and that is the initial object that we had from our db.json file. So let's go in here. And so yeah, so we're basically grabbing this right here, because remember we fetched from first /post. So when we fetch /post, it'll basically be grabbing whatever is inside this post property there, which is going to be this array of objects, or in this case object. But yeah, so the next thing I'll do then is I'll go ahead and just copy and paste all of the blog post data that we'll need, so that way you don't have to see me type it all out. So here's the blog post data that we'll be using, and basically it's 3 objects with these properties: an ID, title, image, author, date, and content. And again, I'm using the images from Unsplash, and the code for this project will be in the description down below for the repo, if you want to go ahead and just copy that. But yeah, but basically this is it. So it's kind of a long URL there. Yeah, so that is what we'll be using, and you can use any image link you want to use here. But yeah, so that is the data for that. Let's go ahead and go back to our app and refresh this and see if we get all those objects, and we do. All right, cool. So so then let's actually set up the UI for that post list. So let's go back to post list in here, and let's go in here, and we'll create a div, the class, post. Okay, a div with the class name of post. We'll create another div, the class name of container. And let's see, so then I'll do create an h2. This will be the title of post. And then down here is where we'll set up the actual post cards, if you remember. And so I'm gonna I'll be using some JavaScript in here, so we'll do curly braces. And then we're going to do exclamation mark loading, and let's see. Okay, so we have loading there, and basically what we're saying is if loading is currently false, then we want to, yeah, so if loading is currently false, meaning that we're not loading, we're not fetching anything, we want to display the blog post. And so so in here, create that markup. So this will be a div, and give it a class name of post grid container. And then in here, we'll be using some JavaScript, so we'll do curly braces, and then we'll grab the blog post, which is coming from our context, if you remember. So this will be an array of objects we're going to map through. We'll give this parameter argument name of posts for each post, and then we'll use I for the index, and then we will return a component. Yeah, so then for each blog post object in that array, we're going to return this blog post card, and we'll create that once we set this up. So we'll give this a key of I, title of post.title, and then the image will be post.image. Author will be equal to, let's see, post.author. Date will be post.date. And ID will be equal to post.id. Okay. All right, so we set that up. So if loading is false, we want to show our blog post. If it is true, meaning we are currently fetching data, in here we'll just do a div and give it some text of loading. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. And let's go ahead and create our postcard component. So we'll do postcard.js. All right. So in postcard, let's see. So in here, let's create the markup. So postcard, we'll be getting some props. And let's see in here, let's give this outer div a class name of card. And then the div in here. So the card, if you remember, it's a card with the top half portion being the image associated with that blog post, and the bottom part was the author and blog post data. And so this div will be have a class name of card image. And so in here, this div will be referencing, whoops, actually no, we need to give this div some styles. So we'll give this a property of style. All right, so for this div, we'll give it a width of 100%. Give it a height of 200 pixels. A background image, and this background image will be a URL, and in here we'll pass in the so I'm using backticks here because I'm going to be using some JavaScript. So in this string, so it's URL, and then we'll use quotes in there, and then we'll do a $, curly braces, and we'll be using the props.image. So this is going to be the image URL. And then the next one will be the background position, center, background repeat of no repeat, and background size of cover, position relative, border top radius, border top left radius of 2 pixels. Oops. And border top right radius of 2 pixels. All right, so that sets up the styling for the image inside our card. And after that div, we'll create another div called with the class name of card info. And here we'll do a div with the class name of card title. pass a p tag in here, and we'll do pass props dot title, and then let's see. So after the title, we'll create another div called card dash author section, and inside here we'll pass in two p tags, which will be props dot author, and the second p tag will be props dot date. Okay, so that I believe that should be it for that. All right, and let's go to our app.css, and let's see. So in app.css, let's go down here. All right, so under hero, we'll need to set up the styling for the post list as well as the card. So for posts, give this a padding of 16 pixels. Oops, not 26, but 16. 0. Let's give some space there. All right, so after post, we'll set up the post can't type today, post grid container, and this is the div surrounding the actual card elements or components, and this will create some styling to set up the grid. So if we have more than 3 cards, it'll be in a nice formatted grid, so we'll be using CSS grid here. So we'll be using a display of grid, and then grid.template or grid-template-columns, set up the columns. So we want to have 3 columns. We'll use this repeat function and pass in 3. And it'll be 3 columns with 1 fractional for each column. Give it a grid gap of 10 pixels. All right, so that sets up the post list styling. Now we'll do the card, the actual card styles. So card will have a border radius of 5 pixels and a border of 1 pixel, solid RGBA, 0, 0, 0, and 0.125. So that'll be the color for that border. And let's see, I believe that should be good. And then the card image. Actually, we don't need the card image for that since we already defined that in the component. So card info. Give this a padding of 20 pixels. And then the card title. Font size of 22 pixels. Font weight 700. And margin bottom of 10 pixels. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so I think that should be it for that. So let's go back. Postcard is not defined, and we need to. Postcard is not defined in post lists. Let's go back to post lists, and we just need to import that. Postcard. All right, and there are the posts. So as you can see, it's in a nice grid there of 3 columns with the image associated for that post, a post title, and some information about the author. All right. Okay. So I think this is a good time to set up the React router part of this React app. So let's go into app.js, And let's see. All right, so in here we'll import. We'll be importing from React Router, browser router as router, so it's easier to type. And the switch, oh no, that's not what I want. Switch, and then we'll import route, and that should be it for that. So then we'll do React. That'll be from React Router DOM. All right, so now that we have that set up, let's see. So in app, we can do, all right, so pass in the router component, and inside a router, we want to wrap all of our components. So we'll be wrapping those components in there. And then in under navbar, I want to then use the switch component. And then in switch, we'll be using the route component. And in route, we can pass in the some props. So route will pass in the path prop. And this will be the actual path we'll be using for this route. So this will be a slash, indicating it'll be the home. And then we'll do, so we'll do an exact prop there, meaning it has to be this exact route. And then we'll do pass the component property. And this will be indicating what component we want to show for this route. And we want to show this home component, which we still need to create. And so home component will basically just be a component that will be made up of the, made up of the hero component and the post list component. So we'll be moving these out. But yeah, so let's go ahead and go create that real quick. And let's see, so in source, I want to create a folder called pages. And in pages, we'll create that home.js. And let's see, in here, we'll import, or we'll do our shortcut there. And then we'll import our hero component from our components folder and hero. And then we'll do post list. Okay. All right, so in here then we'll just pass in the hero component and the post list component. All right, save that, and in app.js, let's take these out. And navbar, we want to show this navbar component across our whole application, so we're not going to put it in a specific component route. So that looks good. And let's go ahead and save it, see if we had any errors. Home is not defined. Of course, we need to import that. So import home from the pages folder and home. Delete post list, we're not using that, and delete that. Let's delete the logo as well, since we're not using that either. All right, so there is the route. So as you can see, we're on the slash on this home route. So we're gonna see the home component, which is made up of hero and post. And if we switch this to navbar, just to show you that it is working properly, we should see navbar twice. And as you can see, we're on this route, and we are gonna show the route, this component based off whatever route we put it in. So we're showing the navbar component for the home route. So let's go ahead and change that back to home. There we go. Okay. All right, so that's looking good. All right, so the next thing then, now that we have that set up, let's go ahead and set up the links in our React app. So we want to have a link for this React blog title, or title, to link to the home route. And we also want to set up links for our posts. So we want to link our titles here to route to the specific component that we want the post to have. So let's set that up. And before that, I want to take off this cyan styling background for the nav. All right, there we go. Okay, so let's set up the link for the title here for React blog. So for that, we'll need to go to the nav bar. All right. So then in nav bar, we want to go up here and we want to import link from React router DOM. Basically, we'll just need to wrap. So this will be a component wrapped around whatever we want to link to. This link component has a prop of 2, meaning where we want to link it to. So for this, we'll do a slash like that. Now we have now this looks like a link, but I actually want to change how that looks. So let's go in here. We'll create a style for the links in our app. And let's see, for that we want to style it, let's see, as text decoration of none, and the color of, let's see, do a hex value of 33A3FF. Give it a blue color, there we go. Okay, and let's also link our let's see, our postcard titles. So let me go back to navbar and just copy this. And in title, oops, nope, we want to do that up here. All right, so in here, we'll do a link. And link to, let's see. So for postcards, we still need to create this route that we're gonna link to. But for now, let's see. So yeah, we can still do it. So we'll do 2 curly braces, and then we'll do backticks. And this will be slash. And then it will be the props.id. So we want it to link there. Okay. And so let's go back to our app.js. So in app.js, we're going to create another route. And this route will be to slash post ID. And the component here will be the post component that we still need to create. But that is a route we want to route to. Let's see, let's save that and see if we get errors. So yeah, post is not defined. So let's just remove that for now. So our posts are looking like they're actually linking. So if we click on it, we go to this link or to this route, but there isn't any component. There isn't a component that we want to show for that route, so we're not seeing anything. So and then let's go ahead and create that post page component. So we'll do post.js. All right. And okay, so actually before we do this, I want to create the state and actually not the state, but I want to create some functions in our context to make sure we're getting the actual post data. So let's go back to our context. Okay, so we have a get post function, so we need to create a get post function. So whenever we go to that post page, we want to fetch that specific post based off whatever ID is in our route. So if we want to fetch the data for the React post, we want to make sure we want to fetch that data based off this ID. And so to do that, we'll have to create that functionality. And so in here, let's do a const of get post. And let's see, get post by ID, async ID. We'll be using async await. So we'll do a try catch in here like we did in the get post function. So we'll be dispatching. Let's see, so we're actually going to be doing some similar things in here. So let's copy that, dispatch. Actually, let's basically just copy this. Okay, so kind of duplicating some things here, but let's just leave it like that for now. So we're going to get post by ID. So we're going to dispatch sending requests. And instead of fetching for post, we're going to fetch. Actually, I need to make these backticks since we're going to use some JavaScript. So we're going to fetch by that ID. So in here, we're going to pass in the ID for that route. And that route will indicate whatever post ID we need. So we're going to fetch from post and then passing in that ID. So whenever we fetch for this route, the JSON server API will give us that specific object like that. So if we, as an example, I can show you, we can do 5,000/1. And if I route to this, go to this route, I should just see an object, which I don't. Oh, sorry, it's actually in posts. So as you can see, we're getting this object back. So that's the data we want to get back in our React app. Let's see, so let's go back. All right, so fetching posts and then the ID. And then we're going to dispatch the set post function or type, and then we'll pass in that data. So let's save that. And let's do a catch. And then we'll just console.log our error. Okay, so then down here we can just pass in that get post by ID function. Now we can go to the reducer, and in our reducer we'll set up the case for the set post. Then we will return an object. So we'll spread out the state that we currently have, and then in that state we're going to update. So for that state we are going to update the current blog post. I believe it's blog post if I'm not mistaken. Current blog post. Okay, so that's correct. All right. So then so blog post, current blog post, and we'll set that to the action.payload, and that should be good. All right, so let's save that. And let's see. So now we can finish up setting up our post component. So in pages, oh, actually I already set it up here. Oh, so that is in the wrong spot. Let's delete that. That should be in there. So we'll do post.js. And let's Just copy that and delete what we don't need. All right, so in here, okay, cool. So now that we have that set up, let's finish up our post component. So in post in here, we need to import from React, we're gonna import useEffect as well as useContext because we're using the context in this component, the context properties. And then we're going to use a blog context from context and blog context. All right, so an import, also import, we're going to import something from React router. This is going to be called useParams. And this useParams function basically will allow us to get the params from the URL route that we are currently on. And we will be using that to pass in the ID for our function that we need to invoke. So in post, we'll do block context equal to useContext, passing in block context, and then we'll do some destructuring, not from, but equal to block context. And then from block context, we're destructuring out, let's see, get post by ID, and also current blog post. And I believe that should be all that we need. Yeah, I believe that's all that we need for now. Okay, and also we need to use, from the useParams function, we're going to destructure out post ID. And post ID is, remember what we have here. So this is the param for that. And so post ID, okay, so we have that set up, and let's do a useEffect to set up the fetching. So useEffect, pass in the callback, pass in the dependency array, and then we'll do get post by ID, passing in the post ID. All right. Oh wait, nope, I just want to do post. All right, so the markup here, we have a div with a class name of posts, and then I'm gonna do some JavaScript conditional. So we'll do a current. So current blog post, so meaning if current blog post is true, meaning there is a current blog post set, that would mean that we have fetched the blog post. So we want to then render out some markup. So we'll do a React fragment here. Let's see, so then we'll do a div, post image, and then we'll give this a style of, so this will be, if you remember in the, when we actually went to the posts or the blog post page, we had an image at the top. So we just want to set that styling. So we'll do a width of 100%, height of 300 pixels. And if you want, you can skip ahead some of this stuff since I'll be typing out some styles. So we'll be doing that. Background, image, and then we can do a URL, backticks URL, because we're going to pass in the image from that blog post. And so we'll do some quotes in there. and we'll be using $ curly braces. So we'll be doing current blog post dot image, and then background position, center, background repeat, no repeat, background size of cover, position of relative, border top right radius of 2 pixels, and border top right, border top left of 2 pixels. And I just realized I could have just copied this from the other styling that I use that's similar to this, but that's okay. All right, so that's set up there. Okay, so that's finished for that. Then we'll create another div, post content, the actual content of the post. Post content wise. So the div here, and then in this div, we'll give it an h2. Pass in the props dot, actually, I'm sorry, not props, but the current blog post dot title. And then we'll do the current blog post dot content. Okay. All right, so if current blog post is true, we'll render out that markup. If it's not, then we will render out a, we'll render out a div that will just indicate that it's loading. There we go. Okay, so that is set up. Let's save our app.js file. And so the last thing I want to do is make this responsive. Currently it's not responsive, so let's add the styling for that. And so in here, down here, we can do a media. And then we'll do a max width of 768 pixels. So when we have a width of 768 pixels or less, I want to then adjust the styling for post grid container. And then in here we'll do grid template columns and repeat. So if we are at that browser size, we'll do a repeat of 2 and 1 fractional. So then we'll have 2 columns, and then let's see. Also want to adjust my hero image. So hero, we'll give this a height of 300 pixels and a font size of 44 pixels. And then the last media query we'll do will be for a max width of 600 pixels. And let's just copy this. And this one will be a a column of 1. So we'll just have 1 column at that size. So this will be more for phones. This is more for tablets. And let's see. I actually want to also do that in here. Actually, no, that should still work. So then let's save that. And let's adjust the size. So there's 2 columns. And there is 1 column. So it looks like it's somewhat responsive. So that's always nice. And let's see, let's also add some more, let's see, more blog post data just so we can see how it looks. Refresh that. All right, so there we go. So we have more posts, and as you can see, it's still laid out nicely in a grid, and it's still responsive, so that looks good. All right, everyone, so that is the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good day.